everyone, my name is Lori Bumbaco. I'm an oncology dietitian, and I am back for the month of April to present to you another cancer-fighting food that you can incorporate in a handful of recipes to help enhance the cancer-fighting potency of your diet. So, happy Earth Month. What a nice way to celebrate all good things for produce, one of the greatest cancer-fighting food groups I'm aware of. And for this month, I thought I would showcase one of my favorite choices from the plant food family. And I would say it's a kitchen staple for flavor, but it's also a nutrition staple for your cancer protective diet. What could I be talking about? The humble, simple, yet potent garlic. So what I want to showcase today is just a handful of ways to use garlic that you may or may not have considered before as delicious yet nutritious ways to use this little powerhouse. Now, what is so special about garlic in terms of its cancer protection? Well, research has discovered that it helps us fight cancer in more ways than one. It actually tells cancer cells to die. Really good to know. It actually stops the formation of blood vessels to supply a tumor. We call that anti-angiogenic. Really fancy word for cancer fighting. It also stops the growth of tumor cells, and it revs up the enzymes that help to detoxify carcinogens that are in our body. So how do we incorporate this little powerhouse in ways to really take advantage of all those cancer fighting properties? Well, there's one super important step, and this is maybe a quiz question for you, a really important step to take in order to take advantage of this little cancer fighter. Do you know that you want to crush or mince or somehow damage these little garlic bulbs? Yes, it's necessary. So the best way to do that is to take your garlic and give it a good little smack with your knife. Crushed. Now what we do with that is we let it rest. We let it rest for 10 minutes at least. And what that does is it activates a very special compound called allicin. Fancy schmancy, right? So allicin is getting activated, and it takes about 10 minutes for that to happen. And once that happens, it activates a handful of sulfur-containing compounds that give it the properties for cancer protection. So really important to allow that to happen. And if you're in the kitchen, maybe you want to give it a crush and let it rest, and then prepare the other ingredients for your recipes in the meantime. This is like multitasking, right? So what I thought I would start with, and I'm going to get that going as you see already, is a simple way to use garlic and infuse that potent flavor. So what I have here is another cancer fighter. This is Swiss chard, and especially rainbow Swiss chard, because what you'll notice is the stem for each leaf is a different color. So I have red, I have yellow, I have white, I have green. And what I'm going to do is take the stem off. I could chop up this stem like it's celery and saute it first, and then add my greens, my leafy green, and then saute that with some crushed garlic and some extra virgin olive oil. Super simple. And if you have a leafy green and you're not sure how to prepare it, that's the formula for success. I promise you, it will taste delicious, and you will probably convert any person that doesn't like leafy greens. This is the way to win them over. So just very quickly, I'm going to take the stem out and just slice right down the sides of it. And like I mentioned, just treat this like you would celery. So you can slice it up, but because it's a little bit more sturdy and hardy, it's going to take longer to saute. And that's why for my other leaves, I already got that going. So I'm going to just put that aside, and I'm going to roll up my Swiss chard and then slice that. And we're going to put this in our saute pan. We're going to get a little sizzle here. And think of Swiss chard like spinach, but a little bit more hearty and a little bit of a stronger flavor. But you can use it in very similar ways like you would spinach. So we're going to give that a quick stir. And it's only going to take a couple minutes, and it will reduce in size. We got some good sizzle going here. And it smells delicious already. So I'm going to let that do its thing, and I want to show you my other favorite way to use garlic in the kitchen, and that's roasted garlic. Have you ever tried that? If you haven't, promise me after today that you will, because once you try it, you will always want to have something like roasted garlic in your diet. If not every day, probably every week. So how I do my roasted garlic is I take literally the entire bowl of garlic. I peel the outer feathery white part of the garlic bulb, and you slice off the top. What that does is it exposes the top of every single clove within the bulb. Now, cutting the top off, it does the same as crushing that garlic. What do you know? So we're activating those compounds by doing that, simply cutting off the top. Now, I drizzle a little olive oil on this. I make a little tinfoil tent. I put it in my muffin tin because that's so easy, and I can make more than one at a time. I put it in a preheated oven. We want to roast this, so it's going to be at 400 degrees, and then we're going to roast it for about 20 to 30 minutes. And you have now caramelized the nutrition powerhouse. Imagine how delicious that is. You can literally eat these as is. They taste that good. But one of my favorite ways to use roasted garlic is as a spread. So I have here my whole grain bread. It's nice and hearty and dense, but you could use crackers as well. And then what I do, I have a little cheese knife here. I just separate out, you can literally use your fingers to separate out those cloves of garlic and spread it right onto your bread. It is delicious. Now, sometimes what I'll do is I'll put this roasted garlic into pastas, or I'll stir it in some mashed sweet potatoes. It lends a really nice creamy flavor. And again, it's almost sweet because it caramelizes the garlic when you're roasting it. A really super simple yet easy, right? Easy and nutritious way to add this cancer fighting powerhouse. So I'm going back to my greens here, and we are almost ready. They smell delicious. What I like about Swiss chard, again, is that it's a leafy green, so super high in nutrients from vitamins and minerals, but also, too, it's a little bitter. It's not as bitter as some of the other greens, so if you don't care for that bitter flavor, Swiss chard is a nice way to incorporate a leafy green that still tastes delicious. Now, what I like to do after I've reached the right texture is I sprinkle a little bit of salt on. So good. And add a little splash of vinegar. So I'm going to take it off the heat here, and this just happens to be apple cider vinegar, a way to add some probiotics to my diet as well, because it's got the mother culture on the bottom here. really fun. It's cloudy. I don't know if you can tell from here. And I'm going to add a little splash of this. Now, any vinegar will do. I just happen to like apple cider vinegar. Some people who like heat will add crushed red pepper flakes. It's really up to you, whatever you prefer. We could toss this together. You could also add lemon juice if you wanted. But this makes a really lovely cancer-fighting, delicious side dish to any of your meals. You could, if you wanted, maybe even have this at breakfast with some scrambled eggs and some toast with some roasted garlic spread on top. I mean, you're kind of starting the day out right when you do that, right? So there you have it. Just a couple recipes to share with you that really showcase a staple in the kitchen for flavor, but also for cancer protective properties. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next month, where I'm going to present a few of my favorite, I know I have a lot of favorites, a few other favorites of mine as staples in the kitchen, and you might be surprised with some of the ideas that I have for you. So stay healthy, be well, and fight on with cancer protective foods.